Henry VIII and Indian parents. Is there a correlation between the two? Many of you might have zero clue what I'm on about, but I think in this podcast, I'll explain exactly why there was a correlation, but due to a major sporting event that's happened recently, I think the correlation is slowly going to end and we're going to see a better life for women in India. Hey there guys, and welcome to the first episode of the Sportologist podcast with me, Harry Cricket3. It's a brand new sports podcast on a brand new channel. And as you can see by the title, today we are going to be talking about why the Indian Cricket Women's World Cup victory could be transformative for the life of an Indian woman in the future. I do think that's the case. This podcast isn't just going to be about sports. We're going to do a lot of sports analysis, a lot of predictions, things like this. Of course we are. But also we're going to be taking a lot of the big talking points in sports, the big stories in sports, and really delving into them a lot deeper and seeing how it could affect things like humanity, psychology, the average life of someone. I think sports is a lot deeper than we think it is. And you don't really get this on mainstream media. So I really hope you enjoy it. If you do, feel free to check me out on all of my other social media platforms. But leave a like if you enjoyed today's podcast. Subscribe because you're all new around here. And if you want to listen on Spotify instead of watch my face talking, then definitely do that as well. But hope you guys enjoyed today's video. So where does this all begin? As you can see by the title, we're going to be analysing the Indian women's cricket team. They won their first ever World Cup recently at the start of November against South Africa in the final in India, which no Indian team has done before. And it really created a beautiful moment of history, which Ian Bishop summarised really well in his commentary.
A victory that will ignite a nation. It will create a legacy for generations of young women to follow.
And as soon as I heard that commentary, I thought to myself, that really struck something. Like this could be a huge change for Indian women. But I'm not just considering in terms of sports. I'm considering in terms of the generic average Indian woman's life. I think this would make a huge impact on it. But why? That's what we're here to consider on today's podcast. I think first of all, we have to begin with the final itself and the general performance of India at this World Cup, because this is a sports podcast. And India did very well. We finished fourth at the table, which we were very close to getting knocked out in the actual league stage. So if you're not a cricket fan, the World Cup works in a very similar way to a lot of football tournaments and such and rugby tournaments where it's a round-robin league phase. No, instead of loads of groups though, we just have a huge group. And the top four go through to the semis, first place fourth, second place third, and then the final is the winner of the two semis against each other. So India finished fourth, which is the bottom-most team to go through to the semis, and we played Australia, who were the massive bookies' favourite to win the tournament, as they have won the most Women's World Cups. But the Aussie team that day, I think, were really starstruck. They came against a really heartfelt Indian performance. And India, if you asked the average Indian that day, would we have beaten Australia? They would have all probably said no. But the courage the girls showed that day to beat Australia was unbelievable. I mean, the Jemima Rodriguez innings, brilliant. The way Deepti Sharma performed, brilliant, and we managed to get through the Aussies to the final where we faced South Africa. And South Africa, huge credit to them, they got through by beating England, and that was kind of unexpected as well because South Africa weren't in the favourites to win the whole thing. It was Australia by a country mile, then followed by India and England slightly more deeper down, but Australia were the clear favourites. And India managed to go through all four, which is brilliant. And it's a huge thing to win a tournament on your home soil. Well done to the girls, they made their history. But I think we need to start by analysing the actual women's career in cricket. Where did it all begin? Now, the first ever female World Cup was actually in 1973, which is actually the first year the Women's Cricket Association was founded. But India were not at that tournament. We just got founded as a nation and got the girls into cricket. But we didn't go to the tournament. Our first one was in 1978, 5 years later. But it was a real good start that the Women's Cricket Association began in India and showed that, you know what, women, you can also get into sports. You can get into sports like cricket. And, you know, cricket is huge in our country. If I was to go outside right now and ask a random guy, what sport do you think I play, bro? He would probably say cricket. And that's because of my skin colour, fair. But that's because Indians are very well known for cricket as well as hockey, badminton, things like this. But mostly cricket. It's our most popular sport, even though our national sport is hockey. It is our most popular sport. And India, the BCCI, we bring a lot of money for cricket in terms of cricket, growing cricket as a world sport. We are a huge player in that because of our population, but because of our love for cricket. But to have the association started, to go participate in the first World Cup, it's really good. But we lost all 3 games at our first World Cup. The Indian cricket team weren't doing that well in the women's side of things. But I think rather than comparing it with the men's side of things, it's better to compare it with other countries and what they did with the women's cricket. The first founding nation was actually England. I think it was back in 1926. Then New Zealand were followed in 1928. Australia, 1931, and then South Africa were 1953. We were 20 years after South Africa. And considering these are 4 of the biggest countries in cricket, we were very, very late to the party. And that kind of coincides with my whole point of this podcast, which is it does relate to what a woman was expected to do in those times. 1973 cricket, that's around about my parents' time, around about a lot of our parents' time in my age demographic. None of them were expected to play cricket. None of them were expected to play any sports, really. And the overall message I'm trying to get across to this podcast is, what was a woman meant to do then, and what can a woman do in the future in terms of a woman's life? Where is it going? And I think this win may have changed things for cricket, but also for a lot of other aspects of life. But we've covered women cricket now, but I think we need to cover cricket general in India, and especially men's cricket, because cricket, like I said, is a huge sport. The men's T20 World Cup 2024, it had 185 million viewers on Hotstar, which are one of the biggest broadcasters in India. That's the same number as the Women's World Cup final this year. Are we getting to a stage where the same number of people, same number of men, women, mothers, daughters, dogs are watching the same cricket match? 185 million, women's final, men's final. People care about women's cricket, clearly. It's growing and growing, and it's really inspirational to see that there isn't as much sexism when it comes to cricket. And it is sad to see that sexism is always a thing in sports. It will always be a thing, unfortunately, because men say, oh, we're stronger, we're taller. Yes, that's just genetically, scientifically the truth. But is there any need to kind of spoil a women's game because of that? Like, even the other day, I was on TikTok watching, I think, the Australia, I think it was a match in the Australian Big Bash League, the Women's Big Bash League, or something like that. And one of their bowlers did really well, took an amazing spell. And all I see in the comments is kitchen league, kitchen bowler. There's no need to make comments like this, but it is unfortunately how the world's being treated. But to see numbers like this being matched in a men's final for India, which we won, and a women's final for India, which we won, both against South Africa, by the way, sorry, any South Africans. But to see those numbers being matched, maybe sexism is slowly getting lower and lower in India, especially when it comes to cricket, because it's a love that unites the nation. We don't know. But if you don't know about Indian and men and cricket and all this stuff, cricket was actually not that popular in India until 1983. Because in 1983, India won the World Cup for the first time with Kapil Dev in England. We beat the West Indies, who were 2 times defending champions, really strong. If you're a West Indian, you were tall, strong, physical, fast, incredibly hard to face as fast bowlers. They were batting well, everything. They were the best team in the world. And for India to go beat them in England was a dark horse victory. And we did it. We did it against West Indies. And I think that victory took cricket within India to going from being popular to suddenly being like a religion almost. But if we go inside the years here a little bit, it is quite intriguing to see the sexism in the cricket, if you like. 1973 is when I said that the first Women's World Cup happened, which England won. The first Men's World Cup was actually 2 years later, 1975. Who would have known that a cricket World Cup, or sorry, not a cricket, any sports World Cup, the first men's edition was actually after the first women's edition? You wouldn't really think that, unless I guess sports maybe like netball. I'm not even sure about the stats of netball. Maybe that's true as well for that. But for cricket, you would have never thought that. But it was a different format, don't get me wrong. It wasn't one day, and then the men started their one day thing, and then, yeah, it's a load of different stuff. But India won the World Cup in 83. The Women's Association was founded in 73, 10 years before that. So the fact that the women go into cricket, the fact that it was already getting popular because of women getting into cricket, stuff like this, for the country to win the Cricket World Cup and for the whole country to see we are the best at something, it inspired a lot of people to take cricket from being popular to being a religion, like I said. Could this victory do the same in the women's aspect? That's what I'm trying to get at here. And I genuinely believe it can. But I personally think, on the topic of men's cricket, the reason cricket became so popular was because a boy is allowed to go play outside it. A boy is allowed to go play sports with his friends. It was kind of seen as a good thing. There wasn't any technology back then. It was go outside and play with your friends. Oh, this is a nice sport. Let me get good at it. However, a woman's life back then, yes, 73 is when we were founded. Brilliant. But what was an actual woman's life meant to be? Because I'll be honest, if you ask any Indian parent, specifically Indian dad, how would you want to raise your daughter? They would probably say three things. Three things I should do to her to make her feel respected by the society, by my parents, and everyone will say I am a good father to her. Those three things are very simple: education, marriage, childbirth. If you do those three things to her and she's able to give you a baby for you to have as a grandchild, you have been a good father. That was simply the case it was. And that's the reason why so many women, even though they got educated, arranged marriage, done, finished. Your job is now to go give me a child by the time you're 30, please. I want to be a grandfather. That is typically how it was. That's slowly evolving, and India has evolved slowly with that as well. And now to this day, it's nowhere near that level. Now there's more and more people being more expressive, saying, daughters, you can go study elsewhere. I want you to become a doctor, things like this. But back then, it never used to be like that. With this World Cup, I think we're going to approach an even higher level of that, to the point where parents are going to be, you know what, I want to give my daughter her dream career. I want to give my daughter her dream career in sports more than anything. She doesn't need to give me a child. She doesn't need to get married. Let that be her choice. I think there could be a real change in Indian parents' mentality, because India is quite a strict country when it comes to that. Not as strict as maybe other countries, but it is quite strict. We're developing, of course, but I do think this is going to be a huge development. But the best way to look at this is really to have a look at where all the current Indian squad players, where did they come from? What backgrounds did they come from? And I've got a list right here in front of me of the players, and we're going to have a look at the 11 players who started that final. Where did they all come from? What were their parents' backgrounds? So, Smriti Mandana, her father and brother both played with her, and she just got into cricket. She fell in love with it, and obviously she got into the team in the end. Shefali Verma, really famous story. She cut her hair, disguised herself as a boy, and went to play with boys in little cricket tournaments, but no one realized she was a girl. That's how good she was for her age and for her gender. Not a single person was able to tell. Jemima Rodriguez, who obviously had that good innings in the semi-final, she was just heavily coached by her father. Harmanpreet Singh, the captain, I think she came from a slightly richer background. She just had very supportive parents who backed her talent and her love for cricket. Deepthi Sharma, she was inspired by her brother a lot to play, and she fell in love with cricket as well. Amarjit Kaur, her dad, I think you guys might have seen this photo. He was a carpenter, and he carved a really nice bat. But it was a grandmother who inspired her a lot, which is really inspirational, actually. That the grandmother, who typically in Indian families are seen as quite pedantic, quite, natural people who always follow the family rules. She was the one who said, you know what, don't get married, don't do this. Fall in love with cricket, go do your thing. And that's a really nice story. Richa Ghosh, her father took her to play with boys, which is really unknown back then, for your father to take you to play with boys instead of girls who obviously weren't playing much cricket. He had to take her to play with the boys, and she did, and she got into the eventual team. Radha Yadav, she was from a modest background, but she was coached at school, and the coach saw her talent. Kranti Godh, she played barefoot cricket for years, apparently, before a coach saw her talent and took her into proper coaching. Sri Charani, her father actually pushed her into badminton, but she chose cricket as well. And finally, I think the most inspirational story of all of them, Renuka Singh Thakur. She lost her dad at the age of 3, but it was her mum who got a government job and funded her cricket dreams. So, as you can see, a lot of them came from backgrounds where parents had to support them. But the biggest correlation with a lot of them, I think, is actually, and I'm not trying to be sexist here, their fathers backed them a lot. And considering a lot of these women were born in the 90s and 80s, the fact that their parents backed them, and specifically their dads backed them, was slowly becoming a thing back then, but nowhere near the level it is now. And their dads did really well to say, you know what, you have a passion, I'm going to help you follow it. Nowadays, I think this could get even more propelled by this victory. So many dads watched that game. Like I said, 185 million watched it on Hotstar. How many dads watched it and saw, you know what, if my daughter likes cricket, I'm going to get into it. Maybe it's not cricket. Maybe if my daughter likes any sport, I'm going to get into it. And it doesn't have to just stop at sports. It could stop at things like education. Like, my daughter wants to do medicine in Harvard. I'm going to make sure she gets there. I'm going to help her get there. She needs to put in the effort, but I'm going to help her get there. Things like this. And the biggest thing is, will it eventually get to the point where, even marriage-wise, my daughter wants to marry this boy? I would have said no. But you know what? Let her follow her dream. Let her follow her love. In this case, it's this boy. He looks okay. Let her marry him. Obviously, that's where some people would say that's a bit too much. Marriage shouldn't be involved in things like this. Maybe that's fair. But I think this victory that Team India did could really prove that when you follow your dream and you go against the odds, as all these girls did, really, and go play women's cricket, yes, it was growing well and they all followed their dream. They went and won it they showed Indians how to win it in India. The Indian men lost it quite recently, but the Indian women did not. They managed to beat South Africa at home and win the World Cup. Right now in India, many people might not know this. Once you have a baby at the first scan, you do not get told. It's illegal to be told the gender of your baby, because back then, no one wanted a daughter. And I asked you at the start, what was common between Henry VIII and Indian parents in the 20th century? Both of them wanted a son. Henry VIII to take over his empire. Obviously, he got a son eventually, but Indian parents, mostly because they wanted a son because it's too expensive to have a daughter. You have to get her married. So much money you lost that no one wanted it. And that's why they don't tell you the gender since I think 1994, 1995-ish. But now, possibly because of this victory, so many people will be buzzing to have a daughter just as much as they would a son. You never know, that it might get to the point where gender might eventually get told in India as well. After your first scan, maybe by 2035, you get told the gender of your baby, even if it's a girl, because that many people are happy to have a girl and to let her follow her dreams. So, on the words of Ian Bishop, I think this is a really inspirational victory for India. I think it would transform a lot of women's lives. And I'm intrigued to see where the life of an Indian woman goes after this, and the life of women's cricket in India goes after this. I think the IPL, the women's IPL, could be launched in a really good way. Let's see. But thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys learned something today. I hope you guys really enjoyed the sports aspect being brought in with the kind of human aspect of it. This won't be the only kind of topic of this podcast, because I will go into some other stuff as well, but it will be some more sporting stuff. It'll be some more humanity stuff, but I hope you guys enjoyed the content. So guys, that was the first podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. We will be back very soon. My next podcast, as planned, we are going to do how to fix VAR in football. Now, this was a cricket one. Like I said, this is a sports podcast. I can talk about cricket, football, tennis, Formula One, anything. I will have guests on it as well, so be excited for that. And the setup will be a lot better than this. Do not worry. This is still very early on. But VAR, there's been a lot of problems with it in football. So I'm going to go really detailed into my research, and we are going to discuss it probably with a friend. So if you want to check that out, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.